He fooled us all, Bryan Kohberger. For a moment, we thought he might be innocent, but new 2025 evidence rips that mask right off, exposing a darkness that'll make your stomach turn. Kaylee Goncalves' father just shared a heartbreaking revelation about what really happened to his daughter that night. It's so devastating. I can barely hold back tears. And that's not all. Kohberger was caught trying to erase his Amazon history right after murders, searching for the very weapon that took 4 young lives. Did he really think he could outsmart justice? You've waited long enough for the truth. Let's uncover it together, right now. For those new to the Idaho 4 case, here's a quick recap of the tragedy that shook the world. On November 13th, 2022, for University of Idaho students, Madison Mogen, Kaylee Goncalves, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin were brutally stabbed to death in their Moscow, Idaho home. These young lives, full of dreams, were taken in a horrifying attack, leaving the community in pieces. 6 weeks later, Bryan Kohberger, a criminology PhD student, was arrested, charged with their murders. At first, some believed the story, that he was just driving around that night, nowhere near the crime scene, and the evidence might have been planted. But if you've been following this case, I know you're here for the shocking 2025 updates. And trust me, they're worth the wait. We're going to look into the new evidence right now, and it's going to change everything you thought you knew. Here's the first piece of 2025 evidence that's going to leave you stunned. Kaylee Goncalves' father, Steve, sat down for a raw, emotional interview recently, and what he shared broke my heart, and it's going to break yours too.
Liking what I've seen out of Judge Hippler, not to say anything bad against Judge John Judge. It's just there's a different attitude, a different confidence, a different way of controlling the court. Have you noticed the difference? And I know you were a little bit against the move to Ada County. Do you feel the same way now?
You can have both things, right? You can be disappointed that the community that was hurt the most isn't the one that's able to see the justice. And I don't want to live in a country or a world where only our biggest societies are the ones that are able to orchestrate justice. You don't want to be in a situation where you have to be in a big city for you to be able to have the facilities and the resources to actually have justice. I think that's a bad message, and I'm still against that. But it is what it is. Idaho County, they didn't have the resources. They couldn't get it done. It was nothing against Hippler, but that courtroom was a fraction of the size of the one we're going to. It didn't even have an elevator. This one has an elevator of at least, I'm going to say 6 floors. I haven't been on all of them. I typically just go straight to Hippler's, which is on the 5th floor. And I get out there and go straight to his court. So and the security, all the different things that they have, there's a lot that goes into a case that gets the attention of the nation. So I was disappointed that we had to move it, but I believed in the leadership of the state of Idaho, that they would go out and find somebody who was built for this case. And that's exactly what happened. They went and found somebody who was understood the struggles that we were going through, and we got a leader that could go in there and clarify and understood the law, could figure it out on the fly. And you see that all the time. Even presents logical arguments that I've been hoping somebody would, which just speeds the whole processes up. Otherwise, you send everyone home, then they build the arguments, and then they come back and they say something that could have been spoken right then and there. So I'm definitely happy with Hippler, and I think he's more than fair. And things are moving. I feel like we went 2 years without anything happening. So I'm glad to be in a situation where this isn't every day of my life. Hopefully we don't go past 3 years, and we get to the bottom of it.
He revealed that Kaylee was viciously punched in the face before she was killed. Just let that sink in for a moment. This wasn't just a cold, calculated attack. Someone wanted Kaylee to suffer. When I heard Steve's words, "He punched my daughter right in the face," I could feel his pain, his anger, through the screen. He even said, "For all those people who think he's a great guy now, we're coming for him."
The grand jury did an indictment, and that indictment basically pulled him off the streets. So I remind my children that we don't have like an innocent person in jail, that there is no evidence. We actually do have somebody in jail with a bunch of evidence. And if he doesn't have answers for that evidence, I believe the case is over.
An investigator named Mabbitt, who examined the scene, found markings and damages in the bedroom where Kaylee and Madison were found, still in bed together, side by side, when their lives were taken. Those marks told a story of a struggle, a fight, a rage that went beyond the stabbings we already knew about.
We talked to Mabbitt, and she basically said that they were in the bed together. They had passed away, but she's seen markings and damages that made her suspect that that there was more to what had happened to them in that bedroom. So, I mean, I'll say he struck my daughter. You know, I'll give that out. He punched her, and you know, so for all those people who think he's a great guy, now he punched my daughter right in the face. So, yeah, he's got some shit coming to him. You know, we're coming for him. That's one thing that was a little bit different. There's more to it, but I'm gonna have to sit down with make sure that I don't say something that, you know, is gonna play into the case and tie anybody's hand.
And when I think about Bryan Kohberger, a man who's shown a pattern of confrontation behavior, like arguing with classmates over small things or challenging police during a traffic stop, this kind of violence starts to make sense. A criminology student who studied killers, who knew how to plan, but maybe couldn't control his rage in the moment. I can't stop thinking about Kaylee in that bedroom, fighting for her life against someone so full of hate. Now, let's talk about a piece of evidence that makes Kohberger's actions look even more sinister. Court documents just uncovered a chilling detail. After murders, Bryan Kohberger tried to erase his digital footprints on Amazon, of all places. Think about that for a second. This isn't just someone casually browsing. This is a man who, right after 4 students were brutally killed, went searching for ways to delete his account activity. Why would an innocent person need to do that? The prosecution found that he navigated pages specifically about wiping his Amazon history clean, as if he knew there was something damning to hide. And it gets worse. Just 1 week later, he was back on Amazon, looking up K-bar knives and sheaths. The exact type of weapon used in the Idaho 4 murders, the same type of sheath that had his DNA on it at the crime scene. That's not a coincidence. That's a pattern. Kohberger's defense tried to argue, oh, someone else could have used his computer, but the judge wasn't buying it. Those items were shipped directly to him, and if someone else ordered them, they could have come forward to clear his name, but no one did. This screams guilt to me. Here's a criminology student, someone who studied how killers get caught, thinking he can outsmart the system by scrubbing his tracks. But he didn't count on the prosecution digging this deep. It's almost like he thought he could erase the evidence, just like he tried to erase those young lives. What would you do if you were innocent? Would you be scrambling to delete your history like this? Tell me in the comments. Now, let's take a look at a piece of evidence that reveals a side of Bryan Kohberger that's hard to ignore. The prosecution has fought hard to bring in body cam footage from a traffic stop, and the judge just gave them the green light. What they found in this footage is telling. Picture this. Kohberger gets pulled over, and instead of cooperating, he decides to argue with the officer. He says, well, I don't think I should have to wear a seatbelt. Really? Don't know about you, but I can't imagine talking to a police officer like that during a routine stop. It's almost like he's daring them to challenge him. The way he acts, it's as if he believes he's above the law, like he's untouchable because he's got a PhD in criminology. But let's be real, this isn't just about a seatbelt. This is a glimpse into Kohberger's mindset, a man who's already shown he's calculated enough to possibly manipulate a mental evaluation to circle the victim's house in the dead of night, to try to erase his Amazon history. That arrogance is the kind of trait you'd expect from someone who thinks they can plan the perfect crime and walk away scot-free. Someone who could punch Kaylee in the face, stab 4 students, and still think they'd never get caught. I'm skeptical of his excuses, and I'm critical of this attitude. It's not the behavior of an innocent man. It's the behavior of a killer who believes they're untouchable. Would you act like this if you had nothing to hide? Let's take a moment to step into the shoes of someone who lived through this nightmare. Dylan Mortensen, one of the 2 surviving roommates. On that horrific night, November 13th, 2022, Dylan saw something that haunts me just thinking about it. As she was running to another roommate's room, likely in a state of pure terror after encountering the killer, she passed by Xana Kernadle's bedroom. There on the floor, she saw Xana lying motionless, her head toward the wall, her feet toward the door. In that moment of chaos, Dylan thought Xana was just drunk, maybe passed out after a night out. She had no idea her friend was already gone, taken by a monster who just left the house. Can you imagine the weight of that realization later? To know you were so close to Xana in her final moments, but couldn't save her? My heart breaks for Dylan. She's carried this trauma for years, yet her story has stayed consistent. That same night, she saw a masked man in all black, a man with bushy eyebrows, walking through the house. And who matches that description? Bryan Kohberger. Dylan's testimony has been rock solid from the start, and this new detail about Xana only makes her account more real, more believable. Now, let's zoom out to a bigger picture that makes this case even more chilling, and it's straight out a true crime documentary. Kaylee's father, Steve Goncalves, recently shared a detail that sent shivers down my spine. He revealed that the FBI believes the Idaho killer didn't choose this community by accident. You see, the area near the Idaho-Washington state line, where the University of Idaho and Washington State University sit, has a dark history. Years ago, a serial killer operated right here, leaving a trail of terror in what's known as the Lewis and Clark murder case. 5 victims, all brutally killed, and the killer was never caught. They slipped through the cracks.
Was there ever a time when they may have told you that they believed that the person who committed this crime was outside of her circle, a stranger, so to speak?
Yeah, very early on, they talked about they being the FBI. So we have an FBI satellite in the location right here in Coeur d'Alene. So we went down there and they laid out a profile for us. Said we wouldn't be surprised if this individual picked this community on purpose, because I guess they knew by the crime scene that this was a planned out event. There wasn't. They would know how something would look like if it's, like a domestic violence type thing. It's going to look different than a crime where somebody sneaks in, gets to the people, kills them, and then gets out and doesn't leave a bunch of evidence, a bunch of blood trails out, and all that type of stuff. So early on, they said that they think that this individual picked this community, they wouldn't be surprised if he was on hugging the border of Washington. He was on the Washington side. There was I think a Lewis and Clark murder case that was 5 victims, and they never figured out who it was. So if this person was studying law, they may have known that this community had already had a serial killer come into their area, and then they got away with it. So that, and if this person wanted to go to a college and go get, education, then, he had 2 colleges to pick from. And he was also going to an area that didn't have a history of always catching their serial killer.
The FBI's profile of the Idaho killer is haunting. They think the murderer knew about this history, knew that this area had vulnerabilities, and deliberately targeted a college community, a place where students like Xana, Kaylee, Madison, and Ethan should have felt safe. And who was studying criminology at Washington State University, just miles from the crime scene? Bryan Kohberger, a man who's already shown he's capable of violence, of planning, of leaving devastation in his wake. Kohberger would have studied cases like the Lewis and Clark murders in his classes, learning how killers got away, learning the gaps in the system. Did he see this as an opportunity, a blueprint to follow, thinking he could be the next one to escape justice? This isn't just a random coincidence. It's a calculated choice by someone who knew exactly what they were doing. The FBI's profile fits Kohberger like a glove, and it makes his actions look even more sinister. Is this a coincidence, or did Kohberger exploit this dark history to plan the perfect crime? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm curious to hear what you make of this. Let's shift gears to a recent court ruling that's setting the stage for Kohberger's trial in a big way. In early 2025, the judge made 2 critical decisions about Kohberger's autism diagnosis, and they're sending a clear message. First, the judge ruled that Kohberger's autism cannot be presented as evidence during the trial. Why? Because the court believes it might distract the jury, making them focus too much on how Kohberger acts in the courtroom. Maybe he seems awkward or detached, rather than the hard evidence against him. The judge wants the jury to zero in on the facts, like the brutal punch to Kaylee's face, not on how Kohberger might appear during the trial. Second, the judge addressed the death penalty, which the prosecution is seeking. They rule that autism does not exempt Kohberger from capital punishment, because legally, autism is not considered an intellectual disability. In other words, the court isn't allowing Kohberger's diagnosis to be used as a shield. No excuses, no exceptions. This is a firm stance, ensuring that Kohberger will face the full weight of the evidence we've been talking about, from his calculated moves and the historical context of this area to the chilling details Dylan shared. The judge is making it clear. This trial is about what Kohberger did, not about any condition that might explain it away. The focus stays on the victims, on the crime, on justice. Do you agree with the judge's decision to keep the trial focused on the evidence? So, what does all this new 2025 evidence mean for the Idaho 4 case? Let's put the pieces together. It's a picture that's hard to ignore. We started with the shocking revelation that Kaylee Goncalves was punched in the face, a brutal act of rage that fits Kohberger's confrontational side. Then we saw him scrambling to delete his Amazon history, searching for the very weapon used in the murders. Does that sound like an innocent man to you? Security footage caught his car circling the house at 3:33 a.m., 3:38 a.m., 3:40 a.m., showing premeditation that blows his stargazing alibi out of the water. A mental evaluation might reveal his true state of mind, but with his criminology background, he could be playing the system again. That body cam footage exposed his arrogance, arguing with police like he's above the law. The kind of attitude you'd expect from someone who thinks they can get away with murder. Dylan Mortenson's heartbreaking account. Seeing Zen on the floor, her consistent sighting of a bushy eyebrows man, points straight to Kohberger, no doubt about it. The FBI's profile showed this killer chose the area because of its dark history of uncaught serial killers. And who better to exploit that than a criminology student like Kohberger? And now, with the court shutting down any excuses about his autism, the focus is exactly where it should be, on the evidence, on the victims, on justice. This isn't a case of maybe he's innocent anymore. This is a man who planned, who attacked with fury, who thought he could outsmart everyone. But the evidence is catching up to him, and it's painting him as the monster who took 4 young lives. I'm confident this points to Kohberger's guilt. Are you? Do you think he's guilty, or is there something we're missing? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear what you believe after hearing all this. And there you have it. The Idaho 4 case just got a whole lot clearer with this 2025 evidence, and it's pointing straight to Bryan Kohberger as a killer. I'm still reeling from all these revelations, and I'd love to hear what you think. Drop your thoughts in the comment below, and let's keep this conversation going. If you found this video as gripping as I did, please share it with a true crime friend who needs to hear this. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more deep dives like this one. I've got a video on the Diddy Trial coming up next, and you won't want to miss it. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I'll see you in the next one.